We want to get right to an exclusive here this morning. We've got an interview, as you can see, with former Republican Congressman Will Hurd. Congressman Hurd, thank you very much for joining us. You've got a distinguished career in service. You were an undercover CIA officer, and you were elected to Congress from your home district. I think you served 3 terms, 6 years. And you join us today with an announcement. Why don't you take it away?
Sure. Well, thanks for the opportunity. And I want to let everybody know that this morning I filed to be the Republican nominee for President of the United States. This is a decision that my wife and I decided to do because we live in complicated times and we need common sense. There are a number of generational defining challenges that we're faced with in the United States of America. Everything from the Chinese government trying to surpass us as the global superpower. The fact that inflation is persistent at a time when technologies like artificial intelligence is going to upend every single industry. And our kids, their scores in math, science, and reading are the lowest they've ever been in this century. These are the issues we should be talking about. And to be frank, I'm pissed that we're not talking about these things. I'm pissed that our elected officials are telling us to hate our neighbors, right? Our neighbors are not our enemies. They're our fellow Americans who we just happen to have a disagreement with. These are the issues that we should be talking about. And I believe the Republican Party can be the party that talks about the future, not the past. We should be putting out a vision of how do we have unprecedented peace? How do we have a thriving economy? How do we make sure our kids have a world-class education regardless of their age or location? We can do this. It's hard. But here's the thing I learned. If we remember 2 things, we can pull this off. America is better together and way more unites us than divides us.
We all know that, but that just doesn't seem to be the case. You'd be the 12th Republican to get into the race. You're considered common sense moderate. How in the world, Congressman, do you break through when everything is so hyper-partisan? People are so angry. And, you know, everybody says Donald Trump clearly leads the pack at this point. How in the world do you break through at this time?
So someone like me, right, a dark horse candidate can pull this off. One, you can't be afraid of Donald Trump. Too many of these candidates in this race are afraid of Donald Trump. But we also have to articulate a different vision. Right? All of my life, I've heard that the Republican Party was the big tent party, that we were the party that was willing to have competition of ideas. But unfortunately, we have gotten in this echo chamber and only preach to the choir. It's real easy preaching to the choir, but what we need to be able to do is grow the choir. You have to do that in a primary. You have to do that in general election. And guess what? I know how to do that. Nobody thought a black Republican was going to win in a 72% Latino district against another Republican who had a lot of money and everybody was backing him. But I was able to pull it off because I did something simple. Show up to places where people don't expect you. Talk about the things they care about, right? And that's the path. It's not easy. And is the path narrow? Absolutely. But it's something that we have to do because it's too important. That what we have to accomplish is too important.
And you recently said that the presidential election between former President Donald Trump and President Biden is a rematch from hell. Now, you just talked about Trump.
That sounds like something I'd say.
That sounds like something you say. Now, what are your thoughts on President Biden, and how would you differentiate yourself from him?
Well, look, the fact that 7 out of 10 Americans do not want to see President Biden on the ballot and 6 out of 10 Americans do not want to see Donald Trump, that is a reason people want something different. I think the first thing we're going to be different is how do you deal with the border? What's happening at the border is a crisis. Now, I will say, this actually started under Donald Trump, from failed policies under Donald Trump, and Joe Biden continued those failed policies. When 2.5 million people came into our country illegally last year, that is basically fueling human traffickers. So how do you control the border? And one important aspect of that is actually streamlining legal immigration. And here's why you're never going to see Joe Biden streamline legal immigration. It's the same reason you never saw Nancy Pelosi do it. Because the far left of their party and organized labor do not want to see guest worker programs. They do not want to see those things. So we start there. And this is a complicated issue that you have to address root causes in the places where this is coming from. So those, and you do, all those things I just outlined, You don't need congressional approval to do it. This is stuff that you can be doing on day one in the executive branch.
Congressman, before we get to Joe Biden, you've got to go through Donald Trump. Something that all the Republicans running to be the nominee have to do is take a position on this indictment, this unprecedented indictment of former President Donald Trump. I'm sure you've read it. What's your opinion of it?
My opinion is, first off...
I'm talking, by the way, since there are two indictments, there's one at the state level.
Sure.
Especially as a former CIA officer.
There's the classified documents case as a former CIA officer.
Nobody's above the law, and you are innocent until proven guilty.
Would you pardon
However,
him?
No, I would not pardon him. And people that are talking about pardoning him right now, when the case hasn't even started, is insane to me. And here is why this is frustrating to me. Donald Trump knew the kinds of information that he had. And when you look at the classifications of these documents, these are information that, if it got in the wrong hands, would lead to a loss of life. That is what makes this case different. And the fact that Donald Trump willingly kept that material and he wants to be the leader of the free world is unacceptable to me. Now, this has to go through a court case, but as Bill Barr said, if one of these things is true, it's incredibly damning. And it spits in the face of the thousands of men and women who every single day and every single night put themselves in harm's way in order to keep us safe, right? And so to me, that is unacceptable. And we have to stop listening to these lies. And the fact that he said he kept this because he wanted to get his golf shorts back,
Congressman,
is just outrageous.
This is not necessarily going to grow the Republican primary base for you, your comments right now. Do you still consider yourself to be a born and bred rock-ribbed Republican?
Absolutely, I'm a Republican. And here is the actual reality when you go and talk to people. Right? This is the difference. I get on the ground, I engage with folks, and I learned representing a district that was larger than 26 states, right, that it took 10 and a half hours to drive across it, and whether I was in a ruby red district or a deep blue district, people talk about the same things. Well, they want issues about how am I going to be able to put food on my table, a roof over my head, and take care of the people that I love.
Yeah, I remember when you did the road trip with Beto O'Rourke, so we know that you know how to play nicely with others. You just got married recently, so congratulations to you and the new Mrs. Hurd. You got your work cut out for you. We're glad you chose us to do it. Many people do lights, camera, action. To make
it's a crowded field.
It's a crowded field,
I know this won't be the last time we see you at the table.
Yes,
thank you very much.
Thank you very much for being